Welcome to the With Series Potential podcast, where we share our journeys breaking into TradPub, how we're leveling up our craft to get there, and spill all the publishing tea along the way.
Hi, I'm Anna Hirsch, writing horror novels.
I'm Ivy T. Woods, I write romantic fantasy.
And I'm Zilla, writing as RJ Hawthorne, and I am also a horror author.
All right, Anna, what is going on with your project this week?
Well, I'm about to start querying again.
Anna, are we still trying to query on the 1st? Is that still the plan?
Yes.
Have you yeeted any?
I have not yeeted any yet. I got behind because I was pretty sick last week.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm doing way better now, but I just couldn't even get in the headspace for it for a few days. All I had the energy was for my day job. So I'm behind by a few days. I meant to turn my revisions to my mentor on Monday, and instead I still have a few changes that I need to make. I finished my full read through last night, and I was like, this slaps.
Better than being sick of it.
Well, at first I was sick of it. I would say for the first 30% I was sick of it, but then I got into it, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of cooking with this. So I
love that feeling.
Yeah, I need to make a bunch of little word tweaks, and there is one foreshadowing thing that I worked on that I want to add a little bit more for. So I'm going to try to wrap that up today and then send it over, and I basically just want to get my mentor's blessing on the whole thing before I start querying again. There's one agent who's open for a day that I might query early, but that's it. Otherwise, I'm Jenna Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you need it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'm let me slide in there, but for everyone else, I'll wait, or at least wait until she's first 30 pages good to go.
Yeah.
Although I did get some other beta eyes on my beginning, and I feel good about it, but
good.
I did kind of rush querying the first time, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm, not rushing this time.
Rite of passage.
Yeah.
It always feels like you have to rush, and then it takes forever. Yeah. Publishing is so much hurry up and wait.
I know, and I'm still even ahead of the timeline of my mentorship because the showcase isn't for another 6 weeks. But I really don't feel like I need those 6 weeks, and beginning of the month is a great time to query, so I want to query now.
And also,
it's they're all open.
Yeah, and you just, the mentorship part was good, but you really don't need this showcase.
No,
you just don't need it.
Also, I don't think the agents are going to be, really looking for my book. Some of them might be if they rep romance and also horror. I know, Gothic is really hot right now, but I'm looking for a horror agent. I want an agent that is not just oh, I want horror now, but has sold horror in the past.
Agreed.
So,
Your book's good enough to be picky.
Agreed.
Well, I love that. Thank you. But also, I'm sure, there's going to be a bunch of agents at the showcase, but they're all looking for romance books, and it's not a romance book, so I feel so I'll get it out there. Well, the vibes are still creepy, isolated, and filled with a sense of foreboding.
Agreed.
I am almost done my draft of Sculptor of the Winds. Hooray, hurrah. I edit as I go. I know it's a cardinal sin, but it's fine.
Not in this house. I have to finish it. We love editing as we go.
I know. I think it's a little bit weirder because I'm a plotter. I think it's a little less common, but whatever. It's just making the language pretty. Let me actually check. Oh no, I don't have it open. I was going to check and see how many words I had just in my editing tab for because it's a lot. So I am almost done that draft. I need to finish editing chapter 29, draft and edit chapter 30, draft and edit the epilogue, and then I am done. So I am very, very excited to be done with that. Before I take my break, I'm going to do an outline for the second book, just because this was originally going to be one book and I split it into two, so I just need to make sure it's kind of hitting all the main points, and I'd rather do that before my break instead of doing it when I come back from the break, and just let it kind of percolate a little bit. But that's where I'm at, and I have my editing document. I have 1,300 words just in editing notes already.
I love it.
Zilla, where are you at?
I'm at page 50, which is where I've been for the last several weeks. Because if we're going to be super transparent, I've not done really anything. I've hit a wall. I need to I have a body imposed break, a weather imposed break where my kids are home from school because of all of the snow that we're getting. And even though I took this week off specifically to edit and revise, it just hasn't panned out, and that's just is what it is. So page 50 out of 300 on my revisions, because I am going page by page instead of revision by revision point, because I just need to feel the flow. My CPs have read the first 3 chapters and have loved it, so at least I know like those are trending well. But honestly, right now I'm playing video games. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I'm currently on maternity leave, so like I have 2 kids at home every day except for Thursday. I've got a 10-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, and it is
Hard.
so hard to get stuff done. Even like my husband's mostly working part-time, so he's mostly here in the mornings. Like it's hard. Because there is so much attention and so much distraction, and it's just hard to get in the zone. And it's like sometimes I have a little bit where I can kind of get into it without it, but like there's always noise somewhere, and
Mm-hmm.
there's always something
And
that's like
guilt.
distracting from this, and guilt. Yeah. There's always something distracting from the zone, which is a little bit crummy.
So today is episode 2 for us, for our listeners, and I know that Anna last week did such an amazing job. Like, she had all the notes and she had all of the resources, and this week, because I was preparing in a kind of a different headspace than I think Anna was, I want to come at leveling up with where you are as a writer and the different energy levels that we can go through. Like, what's our bare minimum? What is it when you can't do anything? And what is it like when you're raring to go? Because I think those are very different ways to approach leveling up. So for me, I'm typically raring to go. I am all immersed in the industry and writing and you know, the community. And I can pick up craft books, and I can talk to friends, and I can, you know, just scroll in the community and see like, okay, these agents are selling this, so I know like that trend might be coming. But in terms of leveling up, when I'm raring to go, I have 3 craft books that I always go back to, as well as 1 podcast. And I kind of wanted to share those today. And I know that Anna went through craft books last time, but for me specifically, having that story structure in my head is kind of my through line. So how do I use story structure to level me up in my different levels of energy? So my first craft book that I always go back to, and by always I mean since the summer because it just released, is Save the Cat Writes Horror. And the interesting thing about this is that it does say writes horror, but it is a screenplay craft book. It does talk more about movies than about books, but it is by far, in my opinion, the best craft book for me. And when I have a level of energy, I've tabbed pages, I go back and look at the different exercises that it has. And this can get me to dive deeper into revisions or into brainstorming. I don't typically use this when I'm drafting, but drafting is a whole other beast that I think we can talk about another time. But in terms of leveling up, like, this is my Bible craft book. Now,
I love that book.
I know, it's so good. It has made me think about horror in such a different way. And I've always loved Save the Cat. It's always been my favorite structure to use. I do use it as a guideline and not a rule. However, especially Lindsell Stanberry on YouTube has done a really great deep dive, if you haven't checked that out, that goes along with that structure, but shows like how she kind of tweaks it to make it work for her. But along with Save the Cat Writes Horror, I go into Writing in the Dark, which is by Tim Waggoner. This is not just for horror. This goes over tension. It goes over, hold on, I'm gonna skip to this so I can actually say. It goes into the uncanny. It goes into how to use description and how to not use description to get that tension up. And then it goes into like the style. It goes into fight scenes, how to make them creepy, how to make them full on. And I think that if you are trying to get any kind of dark anything, Writing in the Dark is great. Thriller, horror, even dark fantasy. I would absolutely recommend this book. And then very quickly, my last book is The Emotional Craft of Fiction, because unlike Anna and Ivy, emotions are not my thing. So I really need to look at this book a lot more. And it is by Donald Mass, who is a words are not happening.
We're both holding up our emotion books to match. I have the Emotion Thesaurus.
I have the same one.
I-
This book broke my brain. Like, I know you say that emotions are strong for me, but I think CC Lear's class helped me with emotions.
Oh,
this
CC
book,
Lear.
I was reading it, and every page I had to read like 5 times because I'm like, what? It's so good.
It's so good, and I always go back to it. And actually, I need to do a reread while I'm doing revisions right now. I just haven't done it yet, but it's sitting on my desk. So CC Lear's classes is by far the best return on investment that you can make for yourself, in my opinion. I come away with so many notes. I come away with just ideas, and I think ideas and motivation are currency when you're doing things in the writing world. And she only does one, I would say one, maybe 2 every quarter, but you can tell she's so invested in you, and you want to invest in yourself as well. And so when you're raring to go, that is another thing that you can do. And then finally, like, I'm going to go down to what can you do when you have bare minimum energy, you barely want to look at your documents. And I'm not even at bare minimum right now. I'm at 0 energy, so we'll get to that in a minute too. But bare minimum is listening to podcasts. It's a passive thing that you can do. You put it on when you're in the shower, which is what I do, or when I'm getting ready. Listening to Turning to Story is, I mean, it gets everything moving in my brain. And I think they're on season 3 right now, and everything that they go through, it's not new. They're not inventing anything new, but they are taking things that they know work, and they are redescribing, they're reteaching, and they're doing it in a way that is entertaining and is,
It brings what's in your subconscious brain into your conscious brain.
absolutely.
And you start thinking about the instinctual, and this is any craft book, any podcast, is I think a lot as writers, especially for early writers, you're operating a lot on instinct, from what you've picked up as a reader. And any craft book, any craft podcast, any craft lecture that you're doing is bringing those things into your conscious brain, so you can very intentionally think about how it applies to your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I think Turning to Story does really well is just like making it fun, because I love this podcast. I listen to all their episodes. Hello, Turning to Story. We love you. I love how like they just approach it so conversationally. They're working to level up at the same time as like their listeners, so it just feels very communal. They use fun examples like Twilight and the Hunger Games that I just find really, it's accessible, it's engaging, and like I feel like this podcast is all about like how do we make the readers have fun too, and that's what I'm after. It's not necessarily about like how can we be the most serious of literature, but like there's a craft to helping people have fun that I really enjoy getting to know in that podcast.
And I think that's a big thing with writing to the current market, is there's so much competition. Like Zilla, you mentioned, even just in Save the Cat Rates Horror, it's talking about movies a lot and stuff, but as novelists we have to be competing with movies, with TV, with TikTok, all these sorts of things, and we have to make sure it's fun for the reader to be there, get them invested in wanting to be there. Otherwise, they're not going to turn the next page, they're not going to buy your book, and what's the point?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you're both so right. Turning to story, they know what they are good at and they lean hard into it. And I think, honestly, they're both such goals. And they know how to level up. Yeah.
This is something I appreciate about even like successful authors, like authors that have book deals, is not just kind of like stagnating, is still always trying to get better and be better.
Agreed. And that's what we have to do here too, because we're all still working to get published. So bare minimum is going to be all of your passive stuff, your podcast, your reading for fun, not for comps. And then just have your document open. That is the bare minimum things that you can do to be leveling up. Because if anything hits, like, you are ready to go. But that's not where I've been recently. Where I have been has been the zero energy, I've got nothing to give baseline, right? And so in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, I have to be a roach here. I have to keep coming back. I can't die, but I've got no energy, so I've got to balance that. So I've actually turned to something that I think a lot of writers do, but maybe they do subconsciously, is they play video games. And I want to talk about the video games that I've been playing and what they've kind of done for me and for my writing. So first, last year, I got into The Quarry, which is a supermassive game. It's all about the choices that you make and the choices that matter and the different endings. And I think that games that have a choices matter, multiple ending theme is the best thing that you can do as a writer, because you can look at these characters and be like, are their choices making sense? And then you can take that information and kind of apply it back to what you've written. And it's like, is that really consistent? And you can critique that video game as you're playing it. I think The Quarry has probably some of the best characterization I have ever heard or ever played with or ever experienced. I love The Quarry so much. And then I've played through the Dark Pictures anthology, which kind of goes along with The Quarry. It's made by the same people. And it's all of these branching timelines, which is what I think as a pantser, like, I have to kind of do, right? So even though I'm not thinking about my story, I'm thinking about a story. I'm thinking about a structure to story and characterization and all of the things that make us good writers. And I am still immersing myself in that. So have either of you guys played those at all?
I have not.
I have not, but the Dark Pictures anthology sounds familiar. I don't play a ton of video games. My husband plays a ton of video games. He listens to Elden Ring lore videos to fall asleep.
Oh yeah.
Be like, Anna, you should check out Elden Ring. It has so much lore. You can read about it. I was like, bitch, have you seen my TBR? But I love video games.
Yeah, Skyrim is a huge, probably my favorite video game ever made. But
my husband would agree with you.
It's so good.
Yeah, so would mine.
I mean, we won't get into the
soundtrack
next one.
slaps.
I do listen to the soundtrack while writing a lot.
I do too. It's the best.
It's so vibey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zilla, have you played Cult of the Lamb? That's my new video game obsession.
I have not played Cult of the Lamb. I've seen it being played because I watch a lot of Twitch.
You need to. It's so fun.
Well, right now I'm going through, I just played Detroit Becomes Human, which, oh my God, when you talk about breaking your mind, I've never cried at a video game. But you feel for these characters that you're playing. Oh my gosh, it's so good. If you guys do anything in the video game realm, Detroit Becomes Human, it's incredible. You follow 3 different characters. They are each very, very different. So you can't self-insert because you can't. It has to feel right for the characters. And I think that's something hard for especially newbie writers is to not self-insert. What would I do as a character? And honestly, the endings that can come up, and it helps me specifically think of plot points. It helps me think of character agency because of all of the choices that you get, not just like as you're playing, but it's time after time after time. It's called quick time events. Do you nail that kick? Do you run away? Like, it's moment by moment choices, which is what you have to do in a novel. And so recently, I've been playing Detroit Becomes Human, and I finally finished it. And it has given me back a little bit of just like happiness, because story creation does make me so happy. And that has to feed into my motivation to kind of get from the can't do anything to the bare minimum and then back to raring to go.
I think as writers, or just as people who are creative in general, it's so important to fill your cup. Because it's hard to create when you don't like have it in you, and just like letting yourself like enjoy a story and just like reach that like flow state, like letting yourself be entertained. I feel like even if you're not actively thinking about like, oh, are they saving the cat or not,
Yeah.
I think you just absorb it and it gives you ideas, and it brings joy, and joy is very inspiring.
Yeah.
To have creative output, you have to have creative input. You can't pour. It's like anything. You can't pour from an empty cup. So like that's something that I'm thinking about a lot right now because I'm almost done my draft and I'm gonna outline book 2 of the duology. But then I'm making myself take 2 weeks after that. So I'm like going through and I'm planning, okay, what am I gonna fill that with? Um, in terms of having that kind of creative refill before I go into my edits.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you both, when you are coming to the end of something, whether it's a draft or revisions or whatever, and you feel the need that there's like a gap, do you plan a break, or how do you schedule breaks, or do you not schedule them? You kind of wait for your body to tell you.
I used to not have breaks at all. I was so, or like, no, I did take a break between when I finished the first draft of Undying Summer, but I really didn't want to. I just wanted to go fix it because I knew what I wanted to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super impatient. But it landed along November, so I finished it and then I just started like working on something else as like a nano thing. Even though nano wasn't really running anymore. Um, I just started working on something else. I didn't make myself take a break from writing, but I also felt a lot of like urgency to get things done before my baby was born.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that was part of it. This time I'm making myself take 2 weeks and we'll see how I do because I am super impatient, but we'll see.
Well, I'm kind of coming up on that right now because I am like literally putting the final touches on my draft, and I'm going to start querying soon. And I mean, querying itself is a lot of work, so I'm really going to be doing that. But I know that once I get the queries out there, I'm going to need something to like to occupy my mind other than checking query tracker 12 times a day minimum.
Me with my
Um,
email. Oh my god.
yeah. And so like that's I guess it's like not entirely like a break because I don't feel super exhausted from what I just did. I've just been working on line edits for a couple weeks, which is like I had to write one new
That's your
scene.
wheelhouse.
It's my wheelhouse, so it's not super exhausting. But for example, when I finished my draft before line edits, I forced myself to take a break. Um I had about I think 3 or 4 weeks off of like working that on that project completely, but I made myself take like a total break from writing for a week. I intended to break a little bit longer, but after a week I was just like really bored and itching to work on something, so I started drafting on my like back burner whip, which was fun, but I didn't like put too much pressure on myself. I was like setting myself like word count goals for the day, but it was more so like for my own motivation, and I didn't want it to be like really stressful when I was working on that project in my break from my main project. So I do like to usually be working on something. I'm not good at taking breaks, but I'll vary the intensity of the pressure I'm putting myself under.
That makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes I have a goal that is literally just write every day, and it can literally be I go into my document and I write 2 words, and if that's all I have the energy for, that's all I have the energy for. That doesn't happen very often. It's usually if I'm feeling very kind of stuck in where a book needs to go. but I have done that before.
Yeah. When I'm drafting, I typically like to take at least one day off drafting a week. I'm not always good about remembering to do this, but I find that if I don't take those days off, like ideally I'm taking the weekends off, then I just start to hit a wall at a certain point. With editing, that's when I feel like I'm more susceptible to burnout, because editing, I'll be like, I have to do it every day, and I need to be in my chair for 5 hours every day, and I need to get it done. Just because like I can edit for that long, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. So I feel like taking more intentional breaks so that my work time can be more focused is something I want to work on in 2026.
Yeah, I'm afraid. So I've been writing since 2021 with really only one 6-month break in 2023. And I've been going since then. And I think that I have hit the burnout phase because I haven't made myself take breaks. So I think moving forward, it is like part of my leveling up is like that balance. It's like, what can I do? What can I do to keep myself going in a more sustainable way? Because right now, like, I got nothing. And as much as like I want to keep going and I want to like intentionally level up, that's just not where my brain is. But like,
We've
again,
talked about it before. You're a bit of a binge writer where
I'm a
you
binge
go
writer.
crazy for 3 months and then you need to like
Yep.
take a month off.
Yep. Usually I can get back within a month, like at least doing like something. But this time, like, again, I've never hit
You
such
have
a
some
lower
really
point.
rough edits to implement though. Like
Yeah.
deleting a character, I
Yeah.
would die. Like that, you have
Yeah.
really rough edits to implement, and I don't think it is a reflection on you or your skill level that you are struggling with those edits. I would have absolutely struggled with that. Like
Oh yeah. I mean,
that
I
would have
was
sucked.
I was spiraling over my edit letter that I got from my mentorship for like weeks, and I wasn't deleting anyone. I was just adding stuff. I added like half a dozen scenes, and that was enough to like be like, "Oh my god." It's just so hard for me to like reshape a book that you've already spent so much time on and be like, "Oh, actually, we're making it something different now." Even if
Yeah.
the changes aren't like changing the book fundamentally, it's hard. And I think you need to give yourself, the time to just like relax and get fully relaxed, because like I'm going to be all woo woo because I am a yoga teacher, but like, creativity cannot come from a place of stress. Like you need to like allow yourself to let go, and even just like you don't have to be like even analyzing the video games you're playing. You can just play them because it's fun. You can just have fun, and then the inspiration will come.
I do have a
But it's hard in
nonsensical.
publishing
It is hard in publishing.
because you have the marketing aspect, the business aspect combining with the art aspect where it's like, yes, my art needs time to percolate, but oh my gosh, I need to get out on submission. I need to do this. I need to do all these things so that I can actually, progress to the next stage. It's always feels like it's about that progression,
Yeah.
and it just feels like there's a rush when
Yeah.
sometimes as a person you really just need to take the time.
That's where
Yeah,
I feel like you need to
absolutely.
be strategic about the breaks and just knowing yourself and saying like, okay, for these X number of weeks, I'm going to take a sanctioned break, not allowed to do anything. But then like when it hits this day, it's butt back in the chair.
Yep.
And I feel like being disciplined with your breaks and being disciplined about like not always trying to do things can help, so that when you're ready to get back at it, you can just go at it.
I do have a very nonsensical video game coming up, so I will not be able to analyze this one.
Perfect. And again, you should play Cult of the Lamb just because it's really fun, and I think you'd like it.
I think I can download the demo, so I will do that.
Dump them in the pit. That's the only thing
Yes.
I've learned from you talking about
There's
it
so
in
much you can
Discord.
put them in a pit. I just built a crypt, so I don't have to dig an individual body pit every time one of my followers dies. You can make them eat poop.
Lifesaver.
Sometimes they come up to you and they're like, "Oh, cult leader, I want to eat poop," and then you cook them a meal of poop. You feed it to them. They die, but your cult gains loyalty.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
okay.
Am I selling it?
I don't know if you're selling it, but it's okay.
It sounds like taking a walk with my dog.
So, in terms of leveling up, I think that we need to acknowledge the fact that leveling up can look very, very different depending on what kind of mindset you're in. It can look very attainable with, hey, I'm going to read a book. It can look very visible, like, hey, I'm going to do some industry research, or I'm going to listen, or I'm going to read this craft book, or I'm going to take this class. Or if you've been like me and you're kind of like at the bottom and you're just trying to stay in the game, it can be playing video games and refilling that well and watching The Traitors, because oh my gosh, I love
Yes.
The Traitors season. But it can literally be anything. And maybe I do just need to be a little bit more disciplined in my breaks. And that's something that I can work on this year.
We love that. More breaks in 2026.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. And then you're just going to work nonstop for the other 11 months.
It's fine. It's totally cool.
I mean, famously, authors get into this because we don't love giving extra work for ourselves.
No, of course not.
We're just gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, it's not like we're giving ourselves a full-time job on top of our full-time jobs.
For free.
For yeah.
For
Hopefully
now.
not for much longer. Yeah.
All right. So today we're talking about pitch events, which I want to start with a definition in case anyone listening doesn't know what a pitch event is. These typically happen on social media. Occasionally it's like a separate like website that the pitch event happens on, but usually it's on like Twitter, Blue Sky, sometimes Instagram. These are pitch contests where you get to post pitches for your book, whether it's the book you're querying, a book that's on submission to editors. Some pitch events allow works in progress, and you can potentially get agent and editor interest through these. Like some of these events are really well known, and agents will look through and like the pitches that they want to see in their inbox. Some of them are more about just like hype and like seeing what pitches are working, meeting new people in the community. Sometimes a pitch event is like theoretically about agent interest and then no agents are there, so it just ends up being about hype. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But this is something I didn't know about at all until like a year ago. When I started out finding an online writing community, I was mainly on TikTok and no one really talked about pitch events there, so I didn't really know they were happening, but I think they're great. So I wanted to start off with just asking Ivy and Zilla, what are your experiences with pitch events? Have you had success with them? Do you feel like they're worth your time? Sound off.
So pitch events, I am the outlier here. They tend to not go well for me. The best pitch event I ever had was Queer Pit, and I think it was because it was a narrowed field of participants. I got I got 3 likes through Queer Pit. One for a partial and 2 for just, or one of those went to a partial, 2 of those just went to a query. Or no, one of those went to a full, and the other one, it went to a query that I didn't end up nudging when I got my offer. Sorry. But yeah, I think a lot of the really, really big agents who are very, very successful don't need to be perusing Blue Sky or Twitter for books because they have enough books in their inbox and they're busy. So I think that is a factor. I will say I have had them go well where I get a lot of interest from other writers. I think the big thing with pitch events is, I'm going to say this very succinctly, it is a lot of blowing smoke up other people's butts, because everyone is trying to trade interest for interest. So you get people liking and reposting your stuff, but it's because they want you to like and repost their stuff, rather than actual genuine interest. So it's a lot of trying to hack the algorithm rather than actually, oh, this is a good concept book that I would be interested in seeing. The most recent pitch event I did was Blue Pit, and that was before I went on submission, so I posted my editor's guide. I made sure to use the on submission tag, and I said soon, and I did end up getting a lot of likes and reposts from that, which means that now if an editor does search editor's guide, which I honestly don't know why they would be doing, I am one of the top posts that comes up because I had that.
Yes,
so
editors
that's
famously don't have enough to do at work and they're just bored all the
right,
time.
like No, it's the same thing. It's like they're getting agent edited manuscripts in their inbox, so like I don't know why they would be, but it's there. Theoretically, they might be checking my page if they're reading my book or something. Please be reading my book. Uh, but those sorts of things, I've never found that pitch events were super worth the effort into them, but I like making pretty guides for my book, so like that's fun. I know the two of you have had different experiences, so I'll let you guys talk about those.
I have actually had quite a bit of interest, both from the writing, or I guess all from the writing community, from agents, and from editors. I've gotten extremely lucky, but I want to preface this with the fact that pitching is such a different skill from writing a book. My first book I ever pitched, 0 likes. Never got anything. I barely got community likes because I couldn't pitch a book. I didn't know what my hook was. I didn't know how to put the stakes succinctly. It wasn't a book that I could pitch. So I had to learn what to do to make my book sound worth it. And it told me that if I can't pitch my book in a community of other writers who are like literally looking to blow smoke, like Ivy said, then I haven't gotten there yet. Maybe my book is not there yet. Maybe my skills are not there yet. So my second book, I actually got 14 likes before I started querying. Which is not typical. Back in the day, you weren't supposed to pitch unless you had a manuscript ready, and I did it anyway, but that's okay. And I did not get any editor interest with that, but I did get 14. I got 14 likes in pitch events, and that did range from like these baby agents to an agent that I'm not gonna lie is a big hitter. And while I don't think they typically go and like a whole bunch, I do think they look at what's out there every now and then if they're bored and like don't want their query inbox, or maybe they're closed or for whatever reason.
Everybody loves a doom scroll.
Exactly. And so that agent actually gave me incredible feedback. She said that if she was selling what I was doing, she would love it, but it was a bit too YA for her, which is fine because it was a YA book. Now for Murder Night, which is the book I got agented on, I ended up with, oh my gosh, I don't even remember. I ended up with agent likes and editor likes, and some of those were for queries, some of them were for partials, some of them were for fulls. But what really made me realize that I had leveled up my pitch game was that I'm writing in a smaller community, which is horror, and my others were not. And I had gotten editor likes from houses that you needed an agent to get into, which made me very excited. I had heard that editors would do this and they would be like, okay, well, when you get an agent, like let that agent know, like I'd like to see it. But these editors actually asked for my full manuscript, which was new. Now, upon getting an agent, I did have to withdraw those. So I didn't like waste that shot at that publishing house. But I found that just the way that you pitch in these pitch events, your agent also has to pitch your book. So for me, it was about getting an agent and about getting a book deal, but it was also about learning what makes a hooky book. And I think people forget like what the point of pitching your book is, other than to get attention from the industry.
It's just the only point of a pitch event is to get somebody to be interested in reading more. It's not to summarize your whole book. It's not to do anything. It's the same thing as a query blurb. It is just to get them interested enough to go to the next step.
Yeah, and sometimes that next step is just like, yeah, sure, send me a query. Because you might not get all the info in your, pitch that you get into your query. And I don't think you should try to get all of it in there. I'll get into that a little bit more later.
Can I also interject that a pitch can also be better than the book? Because I've read many of those as well. It is just a different skill.
It's a completely different skill. So my experience has been like somewhere in the middle of you two. I've definitely had, agent likes from pitch events. My first book that I queried was also my first dip into pitch events, and I think I got 2 agent likes total, none of which amounted to anything beyond a query. One of them was from an agent that had already rejected my query, and so I was like, hey, do you want to see this again? And then she ended up um, sending me like a really nice personalized rejection, which was super sweet. Um, but it didn't really go anywhere. And similar to Zilla's first book, it did teach me that my concept wasn't quite there. I do think high concept books are like way easier to pitch for a pitch event for obvious reasons. So like if you're struggling to pitch your book, it doesn't really necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with your book. But for me, my book wasn't high concept, and it also had elements in it that editors were like, don't give me any more of this. Like, we do not need any more Fae books in the year 2025, is what I learned. So yeah, it taught me that my book was difficult to pitch, which is not necessarily insurmountable, but for this concept, I just didn't want to pursue it any further. And then I began pitching the book that I'm about to query with, Banshee, the Banshee of Clan Murtaugh is the full name, shortly before I was ready to query. And then I started getting some likes from that. I think I got maybe like a small handful of agent likes before I was ready to pitch, or sorry, before I was ready to query. So I had some interest going into it. All in all, I have about a dozen agents who have expressed interest for this book over social media.
They're going to fight over you.
She's underselling. She has agents sliding into her DMs on Instagram, being like, please send this to me when you're
that's
querying
included
it.
in the dozen. Okay, yeah. Sometimes agents, if they're really interested, they will send you a message, which is always my favorite thing. It gasses me up so hard. But again, these are mostly like newer agents, not necessarily like there's definitely like some agents that I'm super interested in, and I do plan on querying all of them. I vet the agents who like things, and if they don't seem like a good fit, I wouldn't query them. Although sometimes I do a little bit.
Chase that serotonin.
Sometimes
that
you need the dopamine.
But not all of my agent likes have been through pitch events. Sometimes they just like find your agent guide in the wild, and we'll talk about what an agent guide is a little bit later. Some of them were from me posting my pitch on Instagram, like not even for a pitch event. But for the most part, these did come from events where agents are looking through and looking for things that they're interested in. And some of these have turned into full requests. Sometimes agents in a pitch event will send you a link to like a special query referral link that will give you a spot to upload your full manuscript. So that's nice. It can be like an instant full request. So I had a few of those. I had some that like turned into full request after I queried them. So overall, I think it's good practice. It's good practice for figuring out what's working, and especially if you're in the earlier stages of a WIP, you can figure out what's resonating with your pitch by trying different things, and you can use that to inform the way that you query and the way that you market it.
Mm-hmm. That is a great point. And I think something that you have to think about as an author is no matter how successful you are, well, actually, there is a level of success where you don't have to do this anymore. But for the realm of realism, you are never going to have to stop pitching books. Even if it's an option book, even if it's book 2, you're going to have to bring that to your editor. You're going to have to be like, this is what this book is. Here's my pitch. Learning how to pitch, like Zilla has said, is an entirely different skill from writing a book. It is one you need to learn.
I also think it's so scary to start posting about your book, especially like when you're new to it, whether you're just new to writing or new to social media writing. I think pitch events give you permission to just throw it out there because everyone's doing it, and then hopefully you can build confidence, you can see what works, and then you can take the materials that you made for the pitch event and then like keep using them to like post your book elsewhere. So I think if you're wanting to grow a writer platform and learn how to do that, pitch events are really good practice.
Any excuse to make content, I think, is useful in that instance. Something you said made me think of a thing, though, which is I would caution against pitching your book too early. Um, because I know for me, I did that with Sculptor, and now it's kind of evolved. And the early pitches I had for it maybe don't exactly fit. Like, it's evolved, so it's not just as much bisexual pirate romantasy kind of thing. And like some elements of that have kind of faded and others have kind of grown as the draft itself actually came out. So it's just something to consider is if you think your book might change a lot in the drafting of it, maybe don't post it when it's super duper early.
Well, I would argue against that with my marketing experience, which is that no one remembers that. So post away. My only thing I would say is like it can potentially date your book. Like if you're in the query trenches and you post your agent guide like I'm querying, and then 8 months later you still have the same agent guide pinned, it might make things seem like the book's a little bit stale. But you can always remedy that by just like, creating a new agent's guide. I think you just have to keep in mind your risk tolerance and how you want to come across on social media. But for the most part, agents are going to be available via cold querying. If they're checking your social media, it's to make sure that you're like a normal person who's involved in the writing community. So you don't have to worry too hard about like your book feeling stale because you've been pitching it for so long, but it is something to consider.
And I think most agents are aware that things take forever.
There is an aspect of being like, oh, hot new book on the market, and I think agents love fresh meat. But it's not going to work against you if you've been querying for a while. But it can work for you if you start querying or start pitching at the right time, and it's something that's like really exciting.
I will say, so I got my agent via a pitch event. She did slide into my DMs for my second book, actually. And then I wanted my third book as well. And she signed so many people between my first full request of my second book and when she decided to like offer it to me. So I don't know where I stand on like the length of you pitching the same book, but I think if you have a good book, you have a good book. And if they can sell it and they love it, then it kind of is what it is. Eventually they will have to make a decision, hopefully. I have doubts sometimes, considering I actually never got a decision on my second book, only my third book from my agent. But, I think pitch events can teach you things, but there is that risk too of like, how do you want to come across on social media? And for me, I tend to be a little bit more risky anyway.
So let's talk about what do you even post for a pitch event? Because I feel like that is a really big hurdle for a lot of people to get over. We've talked a lot about agents' guides. This is like a really great place to start. And an agent guide is essentially a 4-slide pitch deck that usually contains about the same info that you would send in a query. Not all of it. For me, I like to have the first slide say like the title, some metadata about genre, age category, word count.
Word count.
Yes. Second slide, I like to focus on comps and tropes if you want to throw in any extra tropes or like details around your setting or anything like that. Third slide, I like to have the pitch, which could be like the blurb that you put in a query letter, although I like to do a shorter one. Recently, I've been doing a 1-paragraph pitch just because it's a lot of text to read all at once, and you want this to be something that agents can digest fairly quickly. And then I also like to include an excerpt, preferably from the first page, if you're at a stage where that's polished. If you're still like working your way through your first draft, I would say just like add an excerpt from the middle that you really like. And I got agent likes on my agent guide when it was still very much a work in progress and I had an excerpt from the middle. But I do think it's nice to show the first page because that is like a test of like if you can hook the reader right away. And having a really strong first line or first page is always going to.
And it's also good, I think, for the agent to recognize it when it gets in their inbox.
Yes.
Because it'll be the first thing in your query.
Can I add a hot take there? I don't think you need to be that short. I think, so for me, I've had a lot of success with doing my full query as the pitch. And that way agents know exactly what this book is and whether or not they do really like it. So I put my pitch, my query, on the second slide, and then my first page. So it's basically a query package in a tweet or in a post.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about it too. And I've seen agents guide with like varying levels of information. People do it all sorts of different ways. I think the most
There's
important
no
thing,
rules.
No,
yeah,
no,
So
no.
it's like
there's no
you can do
rules.
whatever feels right for you.
This is something people just started doing. But I have heard agents say that they like them. I mean, obviously, like, you know, they enjoy let's
Books.
cut this out. I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah,
They enjoy books.
they enjoy. Agents
I
enjoy
have
books.
heard of
Newsflash.
I have heard of them getting then recycled and used as part of a pitch package to editors by
Yep.
agents as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Something that's really important, I think, too, with the agent's guide, and I'll get into this like a little bit more when we talk about design best practices, because I'm going there, is you want it to visually feel like the type of book you're selling. So make sure that, like, if you're selling a horror book, does it have a spooky vibe to, like, the fonts, the color, the pictures that you're using? If it's children's book, does it feel, like, cheerful? If it's fantasy, does it feel magical? You know, you get the gist. You want it to not only have, like, the written content that's, you know, that's the most important part, but when agents are scrolling through, you need it to be something that screams, like, this is a horror novel, read it, just from looking at the visuals.
Yeah.
It's like cover design for book marketing. You're
Yes.
trying to sell the vibe.
And if you do end up going premium Canva, you can save like your colors, you can save your fonts, and that way every single image or whatever that you put up there can be cohesive, which is something that I really had to think about.
Yeah, creating like a brand, if you want to get the next level up, I think can be really helpful in putting together agent guides, and it can save you
I
time
love a brand.
down the line. We love a brand. So let's talk about some other things that you can post, because agent guide are kind of like the gold standard. Like, I think it's really helpful to have an agent's guide out there, but it doesn't have to be everything that you post. You could post a mood
And there are
board.
some pitch events that don't allow images.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But I have a note on that we'll get into later. You can post a mood board. I love to do like a 2-slide thing where I've got maybe a mood board with my title superimposed, and then the next slide is a pitch. Something like that. You could post quotes from your book. You could post character art. You could post memes or like funny out of the box things. I've seen some really creative pitches get a lot of traction, and it doesn't just have to be for a pitch event with a weird theme, because there are ones like Chaos Pit and Unhinged Pit where you're supposed to get out of the box, but I see people having success when they get out of that box for just any pitch event and do something different that people aren't doing over and over. So when you're looking for images to use, definitely don't use any AI. Hopefully we don't have to say this, but even if the pitch contest doesn't have a rule against AI, you still shouldn't use it because it's wrong. Like, we're all creatives. We should be respecting creative work, and other
And the
people are gonna
earth.
clock
Bad
it.
optics.
It's bad optics. If I see a pitch and it has an AI look to it, I am
Immediately wondering if
scrolling
they
past.
used AI writing it. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's yeah.
And I know, like, we're writers, we're not designers or photographers or whatever necessarily, but there's places that you can find images. In a pinch, Pinterest, I mean, it's not, like, the most legal to just, like, pull an image from Pinterest, but if you're making a mood board, that's fine.
And you do have
If
to
you
be
want-
careful. Pinterest has a lot of AI on it.
That's a really good point. Yeah, if you need to train your eye to, like, really pick out what's AI and what's not, especially if you're writing, like, fantasy or horror. There's so much AI visuals out there. You can look at royalty-free, high-resolution photos on places like Unsplash, Pexels, which is like pixels but with an E. Canva has a lot of images. If you pay the $15 a month for Canva Premium, you can get access to a lot of stock images, which I find really valuable, because usually stock images are really expensive, but Canva has a great library of images that you can just use if you pay for premium. You could also create your own images if you want to get outside and take a picture or make a collage or design something. You could commission character art. There's so many options for things that you could use. It could also be primarily text-based, and just, like, you know, if you're good at typography and design, you don't necessarily have to put a photograph or illustration in there. But the visual aspect is definitely really important, because I think if you're graphic design looks amateurish, unfortunately, it's going to get judged for that, even though, like, we're not design professionals. Just do your best to make it look clean and inviting.
Graphic design is not my passion.
I like it, but like I think my level of it varies. But like, I don't know. I think what Anna said about genre expectations, I think something that went really well for me with the last one I did was my map was done. And
Oh,
I
I
Yes,
love
your
a
map
the
map.
is
map.
so good.
And that's the thing, the map is eye-catching. So that was helpful. Another benefit to Canva Pro is we talked about recycling images from pitch events, is you can resize things really,
Love
really
the
easily with
resize
Canva Pro.
feature.
So then you throw it into, what the size of an Instagram post is, and then you do it.
So that's the images part of it, which unfortunately carries a lot more importance than it should for a group of writers, but images are important. Let's move on to the text. You only have a certain amount of characters that you can use in the actual body of the tweet, the blue sky post, or whatever it is, because these are typically happening on the text-based platforms, Twitter, Blue Sky. There's usually hashtags that you have to use for the event. Like, there will be event-specific hashtags so that agents know where to look. But then there's also age category, genre, all these other things. And when you add that in to, your one-line pitch or whatever you want to say, it quickly starts to run out of room. So there's a few different, like, kind of boilerplate templates that I like to follow for the text portion of the pitch. One of them is just, your log line, your one-line pitch. I think that's a really easy one to put out there, though not necessarily the most effective. Another one is like a bullet point emoji list of tropes. I think this one is really fun. It's eye-catching. I think it works really well for pitch events. You can also throw in a all caps like X meets Y with comps. And I would definitely go big with the comps here. Like, this is the place to break out your Hunger Games, your Game of Thrones, your big movies, big books, big stories that everyone knows, because that's what's going to get your book across really easily. And I find that if you have the space for it, throwing in that, like, big all caps comp at the top is going to be really eye-catching. I wouldn't waste
Blank
your character.
blank.
Exactly. I think what I'm going to try out for Quest Pit, which is coming up, is Wuthering Heights meets Between Two Fires, which is just absolutely unhinged, but I find that the more unhinged your comp pairings are for this, the better. You don't want to be like, ACOTAR meets Fourth Wing. What is that telling you about the book? That it's just another romantasy? But if you're like, ACOTAR meets... what's something that's completely different than ACOTAR?
Mean Girls.
That ACOTAR meets Mean Girls.
Oh,
There you go.
I have one.
Yes.
Because I did one for Shadow Daddy.
Please.
And I did The Witcher meets The Pacifier.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So into that. Like,
Yes.
it was, but those are completely balls to the wall different, but everybody knows both of them.
Yep. I'm doing
and
The
then your
Shining meets Mean Girls.
That is so good. Yeah, because that immediately, it gives you like two contrasting vibes, and then your brain is like, wait, how do I fit these together? They're already like doing intellectual work and engaging with their post before they've even read past that first line. So that's why that's really effective. And then you can save, your proper, like, past 2 to 5 years book comps for the actual graphics. So when you're looking at the text, because when people are scrolling, they're going to see the text first, that is in, like, the actual text of the post. I would recommend against doing just, like, a straight-up block of, like, a one-line pitch. I've just found that I don't get a ton of engagement for those, even if it is, like, my most crafted, most beautiful one-line pitch. It just doesn't do as well as an emoji bullet point list of tropes with an X meets Y. So trying to make the text, like, a little bit more dynamic, seeing if you can get some color in there with emojis, breaking things up. Bullet points are really easy for people to read on the web. And just considering how the text you're using plays off of the images. So, for example, if you're using that emoji bullet point list of tropes, you don't need to put tropes in your post. You can focus more on, like, the pitch and what the book is. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts on, like, the actual text content of the pitch posts.
I think I think another thing to do is just use your space. Like, you can use those orphan lines really, really well in a pitch event. And I think just fragments, I think, like, yeah, just use your space. A space is one character. Just enter on down and make it easy to read.
Mm-hmm. I also think taking up vertical space is good by, like, using those lines, because
Exactly.
then it's visually bigger without using up all your characters.
I think that's a benefit of using photos when allowed to, is whether it's one photo or four, it's your actual pitch takes up more space on the screen and therefore is more eye-catching than if somebody just did the text.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And make sure to use your alt text too. Alt text is really important. This is like, it has two purposes. Like, the first is accessibility, so that if people are using a screen reader, they can read the text that's in your images without having to have the image actually visible. But it also is really good for SEO. So something I've started to do with my alt text, if I have the space, I don't typically have the space for it on, like, the slide that has my pitch. But for example, let me see if I can pull up the alt text that I have for my agent's guide right now, because it's got keywords in there, y'all. I do SEO writing as, like, a freelance thing, so I know keywords.
I love this. I've never heard of using this for SEO. I think it's fascinating.
It shows up in search terms.
Yes.
So
exactly.
If you throw them in the alt text, it gets you increased searchability without having to actually spend the time in your pitch itself.
Yes.
That's so wild.
Okay, so the first slide of my agent's guide, this is all the text. It says, An Agent's Guide to the Banshee of Clan Murtaugh, a Gothic Love Story, 80,000 Words, Adult Horror by Anna Hirsch. But if I open the alt text, it says, Photo of a creepy Gothic forest with the outline of red skeletal hands reaching in. And then I list the text. So just, like, throwing in those extra keywords to, and I probably could do even more to optimize it, but I just didn't spend a lot of time on it. That's a place where you can just kind of pack in those genre vibes and give yourself a better chance of showing up in the feed. And also, just alt text is good for accessibility, and a lot of contests will ding you if you don't put alt text. So
yeah,
just get
absolutely.
in the practice of using it.
You can actually put a setting on Blue Sky where it does not allow you to post images without doing alt text. But if you're using Buffer, that can scrap it. Buffer will let it get past that. But if you're posting on Blue Sky itself, you can actually add a setting where it will not allow you to post until you've added alt text.
Twitter also has a warning.
That's cool.
I've
never encountered those before, but I've definitely, like, accidentally, like, posted a pitch without alt text and then, like, had to, like, scrap the whole thing, and it's really annoying.
Yeah.
Make sure to always read the rules when you're doing pitch contests as well, because, some of them are very strict on, like, what you can and can't post. A lot of them are saying
how many posts, how far apart.
Exactly. What are the hours that the pitch contest is taking place? You don't want to spend hours and hours working on your pitch and then accidentally disqualify yourself by posting at the wrong time. I don't think agents looking through are really going to care. Like, if they see their post and they like it, then they like it. But following the rules is going to help you figure out what the best times are to post and when you can post for, like, visibility. It is kind of a crapshoot, but I do like to space my posts out throughout the day. I always like to have one that posts exactly at the contest opens, because some people are there looking through, like, right at 12 o'clock if they're awake. I like to have a couple post in the morning, and then maybe something later in the day in case agents are browsing later. But it's a lot of guessing. I do think spreading out your posts can help you find people who are scrolling at different times.
I'm gonna disagree with that. I think all of my posts that have done well have been posted in the morning. I specifically follow UK working hours. And then also, you can retweet. So I retweet in the afternoon. It's not an extra post, but it is extra visibility. So you get all of your stuff in early, get that engagement snowball rolling, and then retweet in the afternoon for people who are just, like, looking late. But then if you're posting American afternoon, you've got UK agents who may be, like, getting ready for bed, dealing with kids. So I like to do everything, honestly, before noon Eastern. I try to get all my posts out.
I used to always do it early, But then there was this one pitch event, and I want to say it was on Blue Sky, where the only people that I talked to who were getting agent likes were the people who posted later, because agents were like going into, like, something was weird with the tag, and they were going through and they were looking at posts like based on the order of recency. So like my
latest versus top.
Exactly. So like, yeah, it was like something was messed up on the platform. So now I always like to have one that I post later just in case. But for the most part, I front loaded it in the morning.
Yeah.
But that was a weird case.
Yeah, I think either way it's going to be fine, especially if you're posting all one book. It's maybe better to space it out, whereas if you're doing multiple whips, it might be easier to throw it all at the beginning so they kind of both get traction. But
yeah,
I don't think either way is wrong. It's just different.
Yeah, you just have to do what your capacity is, but that's what worked for me specifically.
Yeah. I will say the first post that I make for a pitch event is typically the one that gets the most traction. Not necessarily in terms of agent likes, but just like larger like reshares and comments and likes from the community. Speaking of the community, I think if you're looking to find your writer friends, pitch events are a great place to look. Like, this wasn't the case for me because I kind of found my core writing group online, and then I learned about pitch events through them, and so it didn't go the other way around. But you can meet a lot of people on there. There's people in pitch events who are, like, you know, looking to make friends, looking to find beta readers, stuff like that. So it's a great way to meet people who are in the same spot as you.
My
I would
first
also
CP.
just be aware of grifters.
Oh
Who are like,
gosh.
do you need a beta reader? Blah 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 blah. Oh, you need an editor. Just
Oh, yeah.
anything that's going to get visibility like that, beware of them in your comment sections.
Oh yeah, like if you're new to the writing community online, there's so many grifters for everything. Yeah. I'll be like, "Oh my god, a New York Times bestselling author followed me on Twitter. That's the fourth one today. Crazy."
Yeah.
There's so many scammers and impersonators out there.
But again, like, I did find my first CP through a pitch event, so like it is a genuine way to make connection. It's not typically what I used pitch events for, but I mean, you have to go into it with a certain intention and you just use common sense.
Yeah. I would say you're always going to be better served by a reciprocal beta read than by somebody just being like, "Oh, please let me beta read your book." And if you're meeting somebody through a pitch event for that, I would suggest exchange first chapters, and then based on how that goes, go from there. Because you might get a 50-page manifesto back on your first chapter about how it's all garbage and how they would rate it instead, and you're like, I'm good.
Did that happen to you?
No, I never found beta readers through that, but yes, that happened to somebody in our big server.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, there's all sorts of types of beta readers out there, which is, I'm sure, a whole different episode.
Yeah. Yep. It would be a fun episode, actually. So I feel like probably one of the last things to talk about for pitch events.
Ivy, I've got more to talk about. I've got two more pages of notes.
Oh my goodness, we're already so long.
We're gonna keep things moving, but I wanted to talk about what are some pitch events that exist. If you're like, okay, we mentioned Quest Pit, Queer Pit, Blue Pit. What are these? There are honestly too many pitch events these days to keep track of.
Yes.
It's become a little bit diluted, and so I do think it's important to be selective about the ones that you are participating in if you value your time. Because not all of them are going to be relevant to you, so it might not make sense to try to pigeonhole your book into it. Not all of them are going to have heavy agent or editor participation. Some of them are just kind of set up by people for fun, and they're more of just like hyping each other up, which is great if you're into that. But if you want to, like, you know, maximize your time spent on pitch events, I think it's worth kind of doing some digging, seeing which events have been around for a long time, which events, you know, agents are posting about, and those are the ones that I would focus your time to. But without further ado, there are a few different types of pitch events. Some of them are general. They're like open to all types of books, sometimes even for media beyond books. So those would be like Quest Pit. Quest Pit is a great one. Agents, yes, Blue Pit. There's definitely a few others, but Quest Pit and Blue Pit are like the main ones that come to mind. Quest Pit is on Twitter and Blue Sky. Blue Pit is only on Blue Sky.
I know Pop-Up Pit has a newsletter for agents, so that's always a good one, but you have to go to their social media and watch.
Okay, so pop-up pit. We'll add that to the list. And you'll find the industry is confused about which platforms to use, with Twitter being in the state that it's in. Twitter still seems to be the home base for a lot of these, but a lot of them are moving over to Blue Sky, or they will happen
Or running on both.
Yeah, on both platforms. You can cross-post. Unfortunately, my experience has been that almost all of my agent interest has come from Twitter. I wish it wasn't the case because I hate Twitter, but I feel like I've got maybe like 1 or 2 likes on Blue Sky and a couple
It's
on
okay.
Instagram.
You're gonna get agented and then you won't have to use it anymore.
Oh god, I can't wait. I'm gonna delete it so hard. So then there's also pitch events that focus on like more specific groups for like diversity and representation. And I think these are really good ones to participate in if you fit in with the group. So Queer Pit, I had good success doing Queer Pit as well. DV Pit, which is Diverse Voices Pit. There's like all sorts of like categories you could fall under for that one. Pitch Dis is for disabilities. Latinx Pit, Pit Black. There's so many of these. I think these are really, really great if you're a marginalized writer, because agents are, looking to sign people from those communities when they look at those events.
I think from my experience that you get way more agent participation in those ones because it's a smaller field. They're advertised better. And like Anna said, they are looking to sign authors from those communities to kind of compensate for just the world.
Yes.
I think, if you are in any of those communities, your chances of success are going to be better.
Yeah. And I would say, use your own best judgment about where you fit in for the community. Don't be that person who's like, well, I am a able-bodied, cis, straight, white woman, but I'm going to do it anyways. This has happened. But yeah. I also think, like, if with certain marginalizations, like, there is a level of, like, maybe feeling like, am I marginalized enough? Like me being bisexual, but like married to a man, I'm like, does this count? So yeah, you have to like advocate for yourself, but also like don't be that person. There's a line, and if you're not sure where you stand, maybe ask some other people in your community.
And a lot of these events will have things on their website about who qualifies and why. So you can always go check those out as well.
Yep. There's also genre-focused events, such as Mutt Pit and Pit Dark, which are both like horror or dark fiction focused. Q Pit is romance focused. I found Kidlit Pit, which I didn't even know about because I don't write anything close to Kidlit, but that is for Kidlit. There's a lot of these. I feel like these are a little bit mixed in terms of like agent participation. But I think still like worth participating in if you fit really nicely into that genre. And then there's also ones that are just like a fun theme. Poster Pit, which is where you make like a movie poster. Chaos Pit and Unhinged Pit are both like chaotic and unhinged pitches. First Line Pit is a new one they started doing on Instagram. I've had really mixed
I don't like
results
them
with
on
these.
Instagram.
It didn't work on
Instagram
Instagram.
Was weird. No.
Look, people I know in real life follow me on my writing Instagram, so I'm like not trying to spam them with pitches. Like that's just for Twitter and Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Chaos Pit and Unhinged Pit, those I always get mixed up because they're very similar, but I actually have had success there. I did get a full request from posting a hot Banshee meme, although I did find out that agent is leaving agent. But moral of the story is I have gotten agent interest from posting ridiculous memes about my story, so I think those are fun to participate in. I also think a lot of these like silly themed events are kind of just put on for fun. They don't have a lot of like what's the word I'm thinking of? They're not really known by agents as much as some of like the bigger ones or the more focused ones. So if you're doing like Swifty Pit or something, I would kind of just go into it expecting to have fun and like meet other writers and not necessarily for agents to be looking, but you never know.
And I think a lot of agents for those small ones don't even know if they're allowed to participate or not. Because sometimes there's specific type events and the rule is that agents can't participate, but like there's no agent hotline for what pitch events are what and things like that. So I think part of the problem with having so many is agents, the people that you theoretically want to reach, are confused about it.
Yeah, and sometimes the timing is weird too. Like I think it was Blue Pit that happened recently, and that is like a pretty well respected pitch event. But there was like almost no agent participation that I saw. I know a couple people who got likes, but it there really wasn't that much going on, and I think it's because it happened on like the second Monday of the year when everyone was still slammed with work. So sometimes the timing is just weird, and agents aren't going to have time to just sit and scroll on social media. They've got their own slush piles to look through, as well as clients and all
Everybody in
that.
publishing is overworked.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to get into some like tips and tricks. We've talked about this a little bit, but if you are like, okay, I really want to work on pitch events and I want to put the time in and I want to put my best foot out there, these are some things I would do. Number 1, always have your agent's guide pinned to your profile. This is something I learned from Zilla. I think it's so helpful. And this is great even if you're doing a pitch event that doesn't allow images, you can have this pinned. A lot of times what agents do is they see a pitch that intrigues them and they'll click through your profile to see what else you've posted. If you have your agent guide pinned, then no matter what pitch they were looking at, they can see all the info that they need right there. And actually most pitch event likes I've gotten have been directly on my agent guide, so I don't even know which pitch they found me through. I just think that that's where a lot of people look. You can post your agent guide as part of the pitch contest. Like you can use that as one of your posts and then pin it. What I like to do is pitch it a few days to a week beforehand to kind of like warm up my algorithm. And that way I'm not using up one of the allocated posts for the pitch contest. And then it's like already there with hopefully a bunch of likes on it. My next tip, which we've talked about a little bit, is to pitch your whip just to get practice. To figure out if it's resonating, what's resonating about it, and potentially get agent likes before you're ready to query. Again, like proceed with your own level of comfort there. And something I love doing at any stage of a project is pitching different pitches to see what works the best. You can consider it almost like an A/B test. Not technically an A/B test because I worked in marketing and I'm like, A/B tests are technically if you're changing one specific thing, A or B, and everything else is the same. But mix up your pitches. Don't just use the same thing over and over if you can help it. So that way you can see if something is resonating more and maybe hook people differently through different pitches. But then on the other end, like use what you've already have. If you have graphics from your last pitch event, go back in, maybe just refresh the graphics. Don't make it too hard on yourself. You don't need to create things new from scratch every time, but I think finding different angles and like slightly different ways in is helpful. The heck? Oh, and I've got 2 more tips. These are getting more advanced. The first one is design best practices. If you really want to make your designs pop, I mean, there's whole like books on graphic design I could tell you to study. I did study graphic design somewhat in college and have done a lot of it. But number 1 rule that I see a lot of people breaking is mixing too many fonts. Rule of thumb, if you don't know what you're doing, just use 2 fonts. Pick a fun one for your header, and then maybe use the header one again for like your subheaders on your little slides, and then pick a nice readable font for your body that is something that is easy to read on screen and something that looks nice. I always just love like a Garamond or something like that. It doesn't have to be a serif font. It could be sans serif. And you want these fonts to be contrasting. You don't want to use 2 fonts that look too similar because then it looks like it was accidental. You want them to still kind of have the same vibe. So for example, I actually break the rules and I use 3 fonts on my agent guide, but I know what I'm doing, guys. So my main font,
guys.
Trust her, bro.
Trust me, bro, it works. I've taken the classes. My main heading font is like an all caps kind of condensed serif with high contrast between, we're getting really into it, between the strokes and the like thin strokes. And then I have like a very gothic, almost black letter font that I use as my subhead. And then I have a very clean, I think it is Garamond actually for my body. Actually, it's not Garamond. It's like a weird historical looking font. But I know that they all work because I've spent a lot of time studying it. If you are not sure what to do, I would say just stick to 2 fonts, make sure that they contrast each other but still give off kind of the same vibe. You want to make sure that your typography is high contrast, so either light on dark or dark on light. And for the slide that has your pitch or any other large amount of copy, I would really encourage you to make the text dark and the background light, just because it's really hard for people to read a lot of text that's white on black. Not impossible, but it is a little bit of a barrier. Although I have heard that for people with dyslexia, it's the opposite. So could go either way. Make sure that you're using high-res images. If you're using a mood board that has a lot of photos in it, I don't think this is as important, but for like your background image, whatever is going to be big, make sure that it is high quality so that you're not grainy or anything like that. And again, you can find these on places like Unsplash, Pexels, and Canva. And then also give your design room to breathe. You don't want all of your elements like squished together and trying to fit too much on one page, because then it's just going to be hard for people's eyes to track around it. But you do want to group things that go together. So for example, if you've got like all of your comp titles, I like to have like a photo of the book cover, or not a photo, just like the graphic of the book cover, and then right below it is like the aspect of it that compares to my book, so that will be grouped together. But then there's like a nice healthy bit of space before you go to the next one. Just general like readability, and it's nice for people's eyes. And like I said before, max out your genre vibes. Make sure that like your fonts, your colors, your images are all kind of pointing towards the genre that you want to convey. It'll go a long way just in terms of stopping people's eyes when they're scrolling. Before I move on to my last tip, does anyone have any questions about design best practices? Or anything you wanted to add?
Anna is a wizard.
Oh, she is. I had to look through my pitches as you were talking. I was like, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And another thing I wanted to say is like, there are some like arrow trope things, images that people do. I think those are really cool, but I wanted to ask your opinion on like a dynamic background. So like I have one pitch that has like a graphic of the book. It has little arrows pointing to either tropes or plot devices or whatever, like representation. And then my background is like very slow moving, like smoke or fog. Like, do you think that that moves the needle at all? How does that look for your eye? Like, can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
So is it animated? It's like a GIF or something?
Yeah. It's kind of like it's a video technically from Canva. Like I just put in the background. But it's just like something to make it not seem so static. I think it's actually moving. Like,
I think motion is a really, really great tool to tap into, and not very many people are doing it. I think most people don't do it because it's like a whole extra skill set. It takes extra time, but there's things you can do on Canva that make it really easy. Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, video and animation in general is really eye-catching on the timeline, so I think if you can incorporate elements of that, that can absolutely help, just as long as it's not like distracting from the text and making it hard to read. For a pitch
and I'm
event,
assuming not too long.
Not too long. I wouldn't post a video where they're like required to like watch through all of it to see all the information. Like I would make sure that all the text is like right there on the screen within like a second or two of playing if it animates in. So that way they can still kind of at a glance see what's going on. Like an agent's not going to sit through your 30-second video, even if it's only 30 seconds. But yeah, having an element that's moving, I think can really go a long way to making your pitch eye-catching. And platforms do push video content. I don't know if this is true for Twitter and Blue Sky, but it's absolutely true for Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, what's our last tip, Anna?
Okay, I have one last tip, and this is my advanced marketing strategy that I used in the last time I did Quest Pit, which was this fall. And, like, granted, my results weren't anything crazy. I had, like, 3 agent likes, one of which was a full request. So, like, that's pretty cool, but I'm not like, whoa, magic tip, I'm rolling in agent likes. I think this was a really interesting thing, though, to help me find different audiences in the same pitch event, and that is to change your pitch and your genre hashtags to reach agents who are looking for different things. Specifically, I think this works well if you have a book that is at least a little bit genre blended. Mine is super genre blended. Like, the base genre is horror, but it's also gothic, it's also got romance, it's historical. So there's like a lot of different ways in that I could talk about it while still being true to what the book actually is. I think that's really
Yeah,
important.
don't lie.
Yeah, don't make stuff up that's like barely in there for a chapter. Like, you should still be leading into what your book is. But for the last quest pit, I want to say I did 3 different pitches. I wanted to do more, but I just ran out of time. This is very time intensive. And the first one was just my straight up agent's guide because I wanted to get that out there. I also did one that really leaned more into the horror romance aspect. Even though mine's not technically a capital R romance, I was like, horror romance is really hot and people wanted it. So, like, I used the horror romance hashtag. I made my mood board very, like, romance focused. And then the pitch text that I had at the top in the actual text field was very romance focused as well. And then I also had a pitch that was focused on the historical setting, where I just made sure to kind of like draw out those historical elements. So I used a mood board that had more photos of the setting and more photos that felt historical, as opposed to just like the hands touching through the dark or whatever. And I also made sure to extra call out the historical setting in the body. And what I found is that I had agent likes on all 3 of those pitches. And I do think like it's 2 parts. It's changing your pitch, but also changing the hashtags, because agents will go through and they'll specifically look at like the historical hashtag or gothic or whatever. And I didn't want to have all like 15 genre hashtags on one post because that looks sloppy and it eats into the character count. So you can be targeted with it if you feel like there's a lot of different ways in. Try the different ways in, but just make sure that you're leaning into it with the hashtags as well.
I think that would be really useful. Sorry. I think that would be really useful, especially when you are just starting to pitch a book and you're trying to assess and I'm coming at this like a teacher, but like, hey, it's me. Assess and see where you're getting the most levels of success or if it's spread across all of them. But are you getting way more hits on gothic than you are on romance or whatever? And that can kind of inform how you pitch in future pitch events. To see kind of what's the most successful.
Yeah, and I just want to hammer in like you should know your genre. This really only applies if you have a true blend of multiple, which I feel like even if you have a true blend, like you do have one primary and you really do have to know that before you're pitching.
Yes, and for all of these, I was still pitching it as horror. It's just whether or not I leaned into the romance, leaned into the history, or just like straight up posted my agent guide. So it's
absolutely.
You're not changing the genre. You're just like choosing which direction you lean in. And again, if you're writing like a very straight up genre and it's not really blended, then maybe this won't apply for you. But you can still try out like different ways to pitch and different aspects to focus on.
Absolutely. Especially for fantasy, like you could have a world building pitch. Like you don't have to go like the historical route that Anna went. You can still pitch it as fantasy, but like maybe your pitch is more focused on the world or more focused on the character dynamics or whatever it is.
Yeah, or like focused on the romance subplot. Or,
absolutely.
Or like the folklore that it's based on, or like if there's an own voices aspect. There's so many different ways that you could take this beside from just looking at genre. So this all leads me to my last big question, which is this all worth your time? Like, we're busy. We're all spending a lot of time writing books. All of us, have full-time things, whether it's like full-time job, full-time parenting. I know other writers who are full-time students. This is something that we do that takes a lot of time, and pitch events also take a lot of time that might be better spent writing. So I would love to hear both of your takes on this, and if you have advice to give our listeners.
I think that practicing pitching is never necessarily time wasted. I do think that if you are specifically going into it wanting to get agent likes or potentially editor interest, you do need to be specific and choosy about which ones you are participating in. I would not necessarily go whole hog for every single pitch event that there is, but kind of pick the ones that you think are going to give you the most bang for your buck, whatever you are trying to do, whether that is building community, whether that is getting agent or editor interest. Um, Pick and choose. Now that I am in a very different stage of authorship, I would say they're probably not worth my time because I'm not trying to get agent likes. I would be trying to get editor likes, and those really aren't happening. Um, and in some cases might even interfere with my agent's submission strategy because, like, let's say I was submitting to one publisher, or one editor and a publisher, and I got a like from a different editor at that same publisher. Now things might be a little funky because they generally have a no from one is a no from all strategy. So how does that work going forward and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to echo what Ivy said. You really have to be selective. I think my practical advice here would be it's definitely worth it. Even if you're just workshopping like in a Discord or whatever, I think that you should do it. I think that you should probably, if you're still querying, do one a quarter at the very minimum, just to keep that practice up. And I think QuestPit is a great way to do that. They do have one per quarter. I think for the stage that I'm in, which is agented but not yet on submission, I think I go back and forth because on one hand, I truly believe that these pitch events are for unagented authors, but I love pitching a whip. I love it. And I think like
It feels
I can
safer
see,
to pitch a whip now than it does to pitch the book that's going out on sub.
yeah, I think that I could move forward pitching a whip when the event has that option available to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would ever pitch the book that I'm like revising with my agent. That's just like a personal thing. I think that space needs to be held. It does. Yeah. And honestly, I have an agent. Like, I don't need to be out there pushing myself. You know what I mean? I've done that. Like, I'd love to save that space for people who like Anna, who are so close. They're right there. They need the right agent at the right time to see them. And so like me posting a whip feels less like I'm taking away that space. Even if I'm saying, oh, I'm agented, it's still like, you know, agents are scrolling and they do get tired. So I don't know. I'm still on the fence about how I'm going to continue.
I think the thing with posting a whip is theoretically if an editor is looking at your page, it is because they have your book, they're interested in your book, and now they're stalking your social media to make sure you're not a crazy person. And for them to then go in and see your whip, it might be like, oh, I'm interested in this concept. Let's talk about this when we have our call, or let's see if I can get a full pitch for this from their agent. And then potentially that could lead into a multi-book deal. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the best case scenario that you get with pitching in these contests as an agented author, is you're getting it, somebody stalking you from that. It has nothing to do with the pitch event. They're not looking at it for the pitch event. They're looking for you, and then it's on your page. I feel like that is the best case scenario.
I agree.
That you get at this stage.
It's just hard to know how hard I'm gonna go, you know?
Yeah. I did one for my editor's guide and one for my whip for Blue Pit, and I didn't feel like I needed to do any more. Yeah.
I do think that's a great point about pitching whips, is it does help to like build your brand and show that like you're hustling, you've got more than one book in you. I do feel like for us unagented like me, still going through it, it depends like how you want to focus your energy and whether or not like you're interested in it and good at it, to be honest. I think if you're someone who is like, graphic design is not my passion, I don't know what fonts look together, I don't want to spend hours looking at images, I don't want to do any of this, or if you feel like you're disappointed with the pitches that you're making, like you don't need to spend your time on it. Just to be frank, like the people who do well in these contests are the people who have a good eye for these pitches. It really is often not about the book idea so much as just like your ability to pitch it, and that's hard. I worked in advertising for 5 years, and I was doing pitches for brands all the time, and I actually only started getting successful at pitch events when I quit working in advertising and I had the headspace to be able to actually work on my own pitch. It takes a lot of energy. It's really hard to pitch yourself. I think if you're up for it and you want to find more chances to get your work in front of agents aside from cold querying, it's a great free way to do it. Like, you don't have to pay for it. There's so much pay to play in publishing already when it comes to, like, you know, live pitching with agents, courses, and stuff like that. And while those things may very well be worth it, pitch events are free and accessible to anybody. They do take a lot of time, so I feel like, you know, you just have to balance, is this worth coming out of your writing time or not? I like to go hard in pitch events when I'm in between drafts because it gives me something to work on that feels productive and it feels like I'm still connected to the work. But, like, instead of spending 3 hours, you know, working on a scene, I'm spending 3 hours in Canva. So I think you just have to pick and choose. It's definitely not mandatory. I know a lot of people who have had success cold querying without pitch events. Maybe they didn't do pitch events at all or nothing came out of it. So I think they're good practice. They're there for you, but you don't have to do them if it doesn't appeal.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, so that brings us to our publishing tea for the day, which we're going to. So at the time of recording, it is January 28th, just so we could harken back to these times for our listeners. So Zilla's been off grid for a bit, so we're going to explain it to Zilla, and if you haven't heard of this, you'll hear it too.
Oh,
What
it's
we
going to
are
be
going to
so
be
fun.
what we are going to talk about today is an agent who was giving what has universally been acclaimed as bad advice regarding
Oh
when you
gosh.
receive and offer. So this agent, I believe, is a UK agent. I'm not 100% sure. I should check.
US.
Is she US? Okay, I looked at the agency and I thought it was UK, but
Who is
I'm
it?
frequently wrong. It's Jennifer Herrera at David Black. She said it with her whole chest. We can say her name with her whole chest. So she made a video talking about how when you receive an offer of representation, you as the author should not be emailing other um agents saying, I will wait the customary 2 weeks for you to read this and get back to me. You should be opening it as a conversation and saying, how long do you need to get back to my manuscript?
No.
This was pointed out to her that this leaves the offering agent hanging really, really hard, and is not industry standard. She went so far in the comments as to say that when she receives language saying, you know, the customary 2 weeks, it makes her think that it's AI written because how could authors come up with this for themselves? Because we totally don't have author community. Yeah. So I think what it was she automatically posted to all her platforms and didn't realize. So she's deleted the video on most of them, but it's still up on Threads, is my understanding, which is interesting. But yeah, so she's getting called out for this because essentially the argument is the second you as an author receive an offer of representation from an agent, the ball is finally in your court. You are in control for the first time in your querying journey. And there are a lot of reasons for why you as the author might choose to set a deadline that is more than 2 weeks. Zilla did 3 weeks because hers was basically right in December. It was right over Christmas. It was a really awkward time to be getting an offer, and agents are busy, so you knew you wanted to set some extra time for them to get through it. I think in hindsight you regret that, but
It was a long time to wait.
it was a long time. For me, I made mine 2 weeks in one day, because it just that had it land on a Friday, which was fine. But the rule is the author sets the deadline. 2 weeks tends to be standard. If there's a reason, you can usually kind of stretch it to 3. I think 3 is becoming more common because everybody's so
Yeah.
slammed. Um, I know for me, I was super, super antsy in those 2 weeks, but it's such bad advice because it's like, okay, so what if you go to an agent and you say, how long do you need? And they go, oh, I need a month. And now you're stuck waiting for a month. If an agent needs more time, they will ask for more time.
Absolutely.
I had one agent step aside because she didn't have time to read my book. Giving her an extra week wouldn't have made a difference because she's the foreign rights agent at her agency and it was going right into Frankfurt. She just did not have time. That happens. It is the risk that you take. There will always be agents that do not have time, no matter how long a time frame that you give them. Zilla gave 3 weeks and she still had some agents that did not get back to her on her fulls.
Yep.
It's just how the industry works. And if you try to cater to everybody's time frame besides your own, you're just never going to get anything done.
And you need to have
You're
the
never going to get
confidence
that
and
agent.
your own agency to take control of your career. That's just
And I feel like it's so disrespectful to the offering agents, the first agent
absolutely.
that offers, to just be like, okay, well, I'll get back to you on a time, and then be like, okay, 1 month. It very clearly, I think, communicates to the agent that they are not the agent you want to sign with, and you are trying to leverage that
Yep.
offer.
Okay, there is like a couple other things from the video that I feel like we need to touch on as well. And one of them was that this was in the video in her own words that I'm paraphrasing now. She essentially said it puts her off when she gets that email saying like, "Hey, please get back to me in 2 weeks." That's the deadline because she has so much going on, which understandable. We all have a lot going on. Agents have a lot of work to do. Then she says, if you approach it as a conversation, it makes her want to read the book faster. And the last time she had an author reach out to her opening up as a conversation, she read the book then overnight. And so I'm thinking, do you have time or do you not have time? Like, it sounds like you do have time, and if you're interested, you'll make time to read the book. That's just how it
You
how
always
it works
make
for
time
agents.
for the things that you want to do, and honestly, sounds petty, and I'm not into it.
It sounds like
No.
a personal ick for her that she's trying to apply to change a industry standard. And I'm like, okay,
Sounds like
but
something she's got to get over.
the ick for you is an industry standard. Yeah, exactly. It's just like there's parts of my job that I don't like. I don't like writing report cards. I still do it every time and I write them well. Like,
Do your job.
it's a little bit cut and dry for the publishing tea, but that was the big one. Anna reminded me of it right before the episode started. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. We do need to talk about that. So thank you for joining us for this very long and very thorough episode on pitch events. So if you had no idea what the heck you're doing for pitch events, you do now. Thank you, Anna, for your many ideas and tips on how to do that. And like, again, Anna and Zilla do so well in pitch events, you do want to listen to them. Next week, we will be talking about creating marketable concepts. So Zilla will be handling our main topic for that, and she is a good one to do it. She is very good at talking about a high concept. So we'll talk about creating marketable concepts. We will have our normal kind of leveling up, and Anna, you will be in charge of our tea for next week. I hope you bring it spicy hot.
You know I will.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.